This is Gabriela on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. We have a real treat for you just around the corner, and that is Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. Jeff is the owner of Jeff Byrd Coaching, and he will be coming to you weekly to teach you more about empowered living. Now, let's join Jeff already in the studio.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jeff Byrd with Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and this is Empowered Living. So we got another excellent special guest for you today. This is Kathy Taylor. She's a trainer, she's an author, she's an event planner, and she's got some good stories for you. So Kathy, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to ask you about, like in your tagline here, it says, I am something extra. Mm-hmm. So could you tell, what does that mean to you?
So I am something extra is something that my friends and family kind of always called me because the details in anything that I was doing mattered. From something as simple as a family get together, there were certain things that I wanted to have, or from any kind of event, I just wanted to have these extra details that it didn't matter to anyone else. So they always said, oh, Kathy is something extra. She's always, giving those extra things that nobody else really cares about. So as I got older, I didn't want to be in the spotlight. I didn't want to seem like I was just doing so much. So I started not being myself because I was really trying to fit into what everybody else thought. And at no time was I trying to outshine or just be this, dramatic person. It just was something that was just true to me, and it really didn't take any effort. It was just like the creative ideas just kept coming. So eventually I kept holding back, but I wasn't myself. And then I decided, you know what? In order for me to be the authentic Kathy Taylor, I needed to be the something extra. So I renamed my business, I'm Something Extra, so that I did not just fall into that trap of not being who I am, the authentic me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love that because, when I think about that, not being yourself to try to fit into what you thought was expected.
Yeah.
And then you end up losing yourself and you lose that unique spark and value that you're bringing to the world and to everybody else around you.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm so glad you recognized that and decided you were going to be you and bring the little something extra, So that's awesome. So I wanted, the way this started, and we met and we're friends through the Southeastern Virginia Association for Talent Development, which is great. I had never heard of that. I don't even remember how I found out about it, to tell you the truth. But what a great group, and always training and adding value. It's a group about adding value.
Absolutely.
But found out at the last meeting that you're an author and you've got a book out too. So can you introduce your book to us and tell us a little bit about your journey to the book?
Sure. So the name of my book is The Diary of a Grown-Up. And this journey started actually over 5 years ago. Yeah. So I've always loved journaling. The way that I process things is that I need to write it down.
Right.
I need to come back to it. And so as this continued, I found that the book was developing and I didn't even know it. So some of the chapters in the book, some of the analogies in the book was written maybe 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
And God gave me the title probably about 6 years ago. And I didn't really do anything with it. And then I tried to start a blog, and it just didn't work out because that's not what I was supposed to do with the title. So finally, when I was obedient, I was so grateful that he gave me the opportunity all these years later of him telling me this is what it's going to be, to still write this book. So it's really dealing with the changes and challenges that come with growth in life. In order to become a grown-up, you're going to have some changes. You have to have some challenges. And how do you navigate those things without succumbing to the pressure of life that comes in life? So each chapter is detailed enough that you can just read that one chapter and see how it resonates with you, and then write your own journal entry. So each chapter starts out with a beginning of my journal thoughts or my diary thoughts. And then there's several poems, short stories, analogies. And then at the end of each chapter, there's a journal entry so that whatever you just read, how does that fit with you? What do you need to change? What are you comfortable with? What thoughts do you now have? That's either your diary or journal thoughts.
Yes, I like that. So you're giving space. You're not just telling people your journey.
Yeah.
You're inviting them into it and then taking those same things that have impacted you and letting them think about it and then record their own story in it. So I love that. And so this is the book, The Diary of a Grown Up. And so there's a lot of sections in here. So
7 chapters.
And so it doesn't necessarily follow like a novel would. Each of these things are kind of standalone parts of life. Because when you were talking about addressing all these different things of life that we have to go, I'm like, wow, you can have an encyclopedia by the time you're done, that's just ongoing. And you can have volume 1 and 2 and 3. And but this is a number of different like main categories here. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your story that led to a couple of these categories that's really significant to you? Tell us a little bit about the part of your diary that led to these sections.
Sure. So chapter 2 is called Healing from Your DNA. And when you hear DNA, you think, genes and biology, and you're thinking something totally different. But the DNA is actually for denial and adversity. We've all been through something, and that's a big part of the challenge part. But have we actually healed from it? Have we actually let it go? Have we actually dealt with that thing? And if you haven't, it's time to revisit it and get to the core of what that is so that you can move forward in your truth. Because a lot of times you create things that are not your truth, where you try to create, you try to stockpile things to make yourself feel better.
Right.
But you always go back to, as soon as that one thing that hurt you so bad comes up, you're right back to square one. So until you actually deal with that, you're going to keep saying you're okay, you're fine, you're all right, and you'll keep reliving this cycle of untruths. And you're not healing.
Wow, that's really powerful. Now, is there anything that you could tell us personally? Because I'm sure you had something in your life that led you to write about this, right? Is there anything that maybe in the book that from your diary that you share that you could share with us to bring that kind of home personally? Sure.
So there's one of the stories that I told. It's called Let It Go.
Okay.
And so it's an analogy in sorts, but it was me dealing with the fact that there's some things that I said, oh, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'll be okay, or God is with me, and thought that I didn't need to deal with that because I'll just pray about it and it all goes away. But that's not reality, and that's not what God tells us to do.
Yeah.
So just dealing with several kinds of hurt, and trying to figure out, why do I keep coming back to stage one? Why do I keep coming back? As soon as I see this message, or as soon as I see that person, how is it that years later, I'm still back to that same hurt that I felt, so many years ago? And it's because I had never let it go.
So what does that process look like? Because I think numerous people can tell you something major that happened.
Yeah.
So what does that process look like of actually letting it go? How do you really let something go so you don't keep cycling back around?
So a big part of that for me was to truly tell the truth about it, that I was hurt. It's not, oh, I can forget about it, that I need to acknowledge that it really hurt me.
Right. And
how can I move forward? What are the steps that I need to take to move forward? And a part of that was the forgiveness, is a huge part of it. And not what forgiveness looks like to you, but what does it look like to me? And depending on the situation, what steps do you need to go through? Is this a healing process and a forgiveness process that I need to actually come and speak to you about it? Or is it something that I don't need to actually come and physically talk to you, but it's something that I just need to know within, that this is something that I have actually had this moment with God, and that I know that I have truly forgiven. There's a peace that comes with forgiveness, with true forgiveness. And I think when a big part of that is telling yourself the truth, which is a really hard thing to do. It's so much easier for us to just say we're okay, so people will stop asking us if we're okay, or that it hurts so bad that we don't really want to talk about it anymore. So for me, a big part of that is really seeking God, and looking into my faith to say, okay, God, I don't know how to deal with this. So help me, navigate what this process looks like. But for anyone, whether it be faith-based or not, I think it's just really getting to what is the truth. Tell yourself the truth so that you can move on from there.
Right. And before we started, we were talking about messages. This life is filled with messages that come to us about our identity, about our worth, our value. And really there's that spiritual battle that's going on that plays out through those messages. And we may not often associate them. We might not even believe in a spirit world, but we're receiving these messages all the time about ourselves, about life, about God, about other people. And so I think a whole lot, when we go back to that forgiveness piece, I think a lot of it goes, the thing that we need to forgive was a really negative or devaluing message that somebody gave us about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And that they hurt because we're like, oh my gosh, what if it's true? If that's true, then I'm no good. I'm just, worthless, like they made me feel, right? So I think a lot of it is replacing that message with a true message. So as a person of faith, that's a little bit easier. We're all believing something. So we're all people of faith. They're just different faiths. Even if you believe there is nothing bigger, that's still a faith, But so tell me a little bit about what are the messages, what are some of the messages that you've learned to replace with those other damaging messages that hurt?
So I think the biggest message is, who does God say I am?
Right.
Because that's my faith and that's, my truth. So regardless of what I've heard before, I'm always going back to, what does the Bible say? And what do I have to match that up to? Am I only going by what this person said? And maybe several people have told me something similar to the same thing, and I've grouped all that together. Well, if 5 people said it, then it must be true. And so now I've learned that I need to, even if, 25 people have said it, what does God say about whatever they've said? And how does it line up with his word? And in that case, then if it doesn't line up, then I need to immediately dismiss that and reclaim what the truth is, what my truth is. And whether it be, one thing that has worked well for me is that I'll use index cards, or I'll use my phone to actually write down what my truth is. Because if I'm thinking about what several people have said over and over again, then I know that I need to replace that. And just having the thoughts alone is not always the best method of doing that. I need to see it in writing. And I'm not going to always pick up a Bible or read the right devotional at the moment that I need to read that.
Right.
So I need to have something that's quick and handy that I can look at consistently, saying who I truly am versus what several people have said. And people don't always say something in a way to hurt you. They're telling you what they think is best sometimes because they're speaking from their truth and what they knew. So sometimes you have to reject that, because not in a defensive way, but this is all they know. So this is their truth. So I need to step back and say, okay, they're not trying to hurt me. They're not trying to tell me something bad. They're simply telling me what they think is best. And you have